Okay. So, thank you for coming in this week.
Yeah, thank you.
How have you been feeling since we last saw each other?
I've been feeling okay. Um, Things have still been a little bit tense between me and my boyfriend, so it's been a bit of a struggle with that.
Okay. What are some things that came up this week?
Yeah, I feel like I have like a hard time communicating with him sometimes.
Hmm.
I just mm, Sometimes it's just like I want him to like know what I'm feeling, but it's hard for me to share that with him. So I know that's like not really fair to him because I can't expect him just to read my mind, but I'm just so nervous when I have to be like vulnerable.
Hmm.
Um, and he can see that and it frustrates him that I'm like that. So I don't know. It's been a little bit tough.
Okay. And like, do you feel like we could talk about that and kind of work that out, see what's happening, how maybe we can give you some like skills to kind of help out?
Oh yeah, that would be really helpful.
Okay, well, so you mentioned that he, right, like he gets frustrated when you don't express yourself. Um, so can you tell me a little bit about like how that looks like?
Yeah, so a lot of times it just starts out where it's just kind of having a conversation about something, and he might, start talking about his day and what happened and how it made him feel. And, he's pretty open, which is good. And I'm pretty good at asking questions. So, like, that part of the conversation always goes really well. But then, he wants to know a little bit more about me and my day, and I kind of keep it very, like, surface level,
Mm.
which sometimes he's okay with. But, the other day we were just talking more about, like, just, like, stuff with our families, which is something that's, kind of personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I was kind of like shutting him down in a lot of ways, and he was just expressing frustration, just kind of about how like he goes into detail about things. He feels like he's giving me the chance to really get to know him, and I'm not really doing that. So it kind of feels like I'm pushing him away, which I am. So then he kind of walks off frustrated, and then he doesn't want to talk to me for the rest of the night.
Okay, and so like when he, walks away, um, is there anything that you do, or like, do you tell him like how that makes you feel that he's walking away?
No, I never do. I just kind of I try to give him some space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I end up feeling upset and kind of isolated, and um, it's not a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever tell them like, I'm feeling a little isolated you know, when you walk away and
I try to, and sometimes I'll kind of bring it up, but I think I've never really fully expressed like how hurt I can feel by that. So I think maybe he doesn't realize how much it affects me.
okay. Well, it seems like you are holding a lot in, and he's, kind of not listening, but you're also holding back a little bit. Do you ever feel like you come to, both of you come to like a conclusion, or, do things escalate? How do things usually end?
Yeah. So eventually, one of us will usually just kind of apologize, and then we kind of just move on from there, um, which is good because then I feel like sometimes we get another chance, but at the same time, like we never really like fully like get into like the actual issues.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that um, I'm not really vulnerable with him, and then he reacts in a way that like further kind of makes me want to withdraw. So it just kind of ends up being this like cycle of we have these conversations, they end like with both of us kind of being upset. We apologize, and then the whole thing happens again.
Okay. So it sounds like it's just a cycle of, you know, not expressing what you're feeling. He's also not expressing his frustration, and it just ends up in nobody saying anything. And then you just kind of push that back, like you said, not address the issue that you really want to address, and then just move on, right? And so, how does that make you feel? That just you're not getting to the issue that you really want to talk about.
Yeah. It just makes me frustrated um, because, I really want to kind of get to that place where we can address these issues. Like, I really care about him, and, I want to try to build a future with this person. And I know we can't do that if we're unable to, talk about, the issues that we have. So it's hard.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I'm glad that you came. And you said that you want to be able to be vulnerable with him. And actually, there is a skill that we can practice today if you like. It'll kind of help you to express yourself in a way that he'll be able to hear you and reciprocate. It's kind of like a way to get what you're feeling out there. And then you can build on that and just practice off each other. So how do you feel about like practicing that skill with me? So that way when you're with him, you feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. So it's pretty much, it's called DEARMAN.
Okay.
It's kind of like an acronym. We can go over each one individually, and I can like explain a little bit what that means, and then we can have a chance to practice. How does that sound?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. So the first one is D, right? And it's describing the situation that you're in like a simple way. So in this part, you're not really talking about your emotions. You're just setting up the conversation. So it's kind of like being, when he's walking away, right? Because he's frustrated. You could say something like, oh, like, I'd like to talk about this. So is there like, how do you see that playing out in your situation?
Yeah, I think at least like letting him know that I am open to discussion might be helpful, because maybe he doesn't even realize that it's something I want to talk about. So yeah, I think I could, say something that could hopefully like make him stay so we can have that conversation.
Okay. Yeah. And what do you think you could say, like exact words? Like,
yeah. I think I'd probably say something like, hey, before you walk away, can we just sit down for, just a little bit, just so we can really talk this out? I really want to get to the bottom of what's going on here because, I value our relationship.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good start. You are, right, telling him, I want to talk about this, right? You are setting him up for this to have this conversation with you, kind of letting him know that you want to talk about it. And yeah, that's like a good way to get it started. And then we can go on to the next one is the E, express how you're feeling using I statements, right? Because we want to take accountability for what we're feeling. So that way we can help others understand where we're coming from, right? So you could say something like, I'm feeling a little isolated, like you said earlier.
Okay.
And I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so how, right, you said that you would tell them that you want to take a few minutes to sit down and talk about it, and then going on to the expressing your feelings with I statements, what could be an example you think that you can use?
Yeah. I think I might say something along the lines of, I think I like what you said about, telling him that I feel isolated. So you're like, hey, when you walk away like that, I feel really isolated, and it makes me want to shut down even more.
Okay.
And I want to be able to just be more vulnerable with you.
Yeah, no.
I think that would be okay.
No, yeah, I think that's great because you're using now the I statements, and now he's hearing how you're feeling, right? And then going into the A, asserting how you're feeling by either asking for your need, right? So this is where you want to make it really clear and be straightforward, and say it like in a strong way, so that way he can see like that this is really a pressing issue for you.
Okay.
So saying something like, I want you to hear me out. I don't want you to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So just like being straightforward with him and like telling him what it is that you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might just say something like, I really want to be able to talk to you about important things. Um, and, when we start to, kind of have this tension between us, I want to be able to sit down and express myself and not have to worry, that you're going to, I don't know, further isolate me by walking away.
Okay, yeah. No, yeah, you're expressing, that desire to keep him from walking away because you have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you're taking ownership of that. So that's really good. And so the next one is R, reinforcing by making sure that your partner hears you. So why should they grant your request? What's in it for them? And this is why when you can talk about how you want this relationship to continue long term. And so if you're listening to each other,
Mm-hmm.
right, he gets to be heard and he also gets to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that because I think that really helps us get to the root of the issue. If I could just say to him, like, I want to be able to talk with you. I want this relationship to work. I really care about you, and I know that you want to hear what I have to say. You want me to be vulnerable, and that's something I want to work on.
Yeah, no, and just like hoping that hearing you say, right? Sorry, that you want to be vulnerable with him, right? Will get him to hopefully open up because he's seeing that you're trying.
Yeah, I think that will because that's something he always tells me. So.
Yeah, no, and then like you're definitely working on it, just like by coming in with me and like practicing, and so hopefully he'll be able to actually see that play out.
I hope so.
And right, the next one is staying mindful. That's just what the M represents. So staying focused on the conversation, right? Not getting distracted, right? Because you're the one that initiated the conversation, so you want to make sure that like he's hearing you, you're hearing him, and the focus is on the conversation at hand that you want to have.
Yeah, I agree. That's important. Yeah, I think making sure that wherever we're talking, our phones aren't, on by us, where they're ringing, or the TV's not distracting us, or there aren't other people around. I think that would be really important to the success of the conversation.
No, you're absolutely right. That'll definitely minimize the distractions. And it's also important, and this is where the A comes in, to appear confident. So like keeping your head up, making sure that like you use a tone of voice that he can hear clearly, right, what you're saying to him. Right, when those feelings of like isolation come in, that you don't like hide or try to like keep that tone of voice so he can like listen.
Okay, yeah, that's important. And I think too, like just making sure that I'm still like making eye contact. I think sometimes I have a hard time when I'm especially feeling vulnerable, of like maybe like looking off to the side or like down at the floor. So I think that's something that I need to be mindful of too.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. And so the last one is just the N, negotiate. So in a relationship, right, you give to get. So kind of like what we talked about earlier, you are vulnerable with him. He appreciates that, and so he reciprocates that by being vulnerable with you, which you said earlier that he has no trouble with, right? And so just like keeping that momentum going, right, where you're both being vulnerable with each other, you're giving and you're getting. And so having a conversation about how you might be able to resolve the problem together.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. Just because I know like if this continues, like he's gonna not want to be vulnerable anymore either. So hopefully this can kind of break some of that cycle.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so hopefully, like, using these steps will help kind of guide you in starting that conversation, so that way you can clearly say what you want to say, so that way you're not left guessing, you're not left feeling isolated, and you're both listening to each other clearly. Is that something you feel like you would be able to practice with him?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, maybe the first time might be a little rough, but I think this really helped doing it with you. Um, where there's not so much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely something that I think would be helpful for our relationship. So I'm willing to go and try it.
Okay, yeah, and like if you feel like next time you want to keep practicing that and come back to this, we can definitely do that. Just so that way you're building your confidence, right? And you can clearly say what it is that you're feeling, so he hears you out.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
Okay. Well then, I guess that'll be the end of our session today, and yeah, we can touch base again next week and see how that went for you.
All right, great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Mm-hmm. The light is green, so.